David "Tank" Abbott was a wild force of the 90s, always charging forward and brawling like a man possessed. But his biggest enemy wasn't always the guy across the cage. It was his gas tank. If his cardio had been even a little better, he probably wouldn't have suffered nearly as many losses as he did. In this video, we're breaking down those very losses that defined Tank's career. Tank Abbott made his UFC debut back in 1995 at the UFC 6 tournament, where he made a name for himself by smashing through John Matua in the quarterfinals and then Paul Verhoeven's in the semifinals.
I fought the two biggest guys ever fought in the UFC, a 400-pound guy and the 6'5", whatever, 300 or 280, whatever size you want to make. Real fights, not some guy that's out there laying down, going, okay.
Tank's power and aggression earned him a spot in the final against Oleg Taktarov. From the opening bell, Abbott came forward, swinging heavy punches and using raw power to keep Taktarov uncomfortable. The Russian constantly sought grappling exchanges and threatened with chokes and guillotines, even from bottom position. Abbott's pressure and strikes dragged the fight into slow scrambles, but fatigue in the Wyoming altitude soon began to show. After exchanges on the feet and work from guard, Taktarov ultimately secured back control, locked a rear naked choke, and forced Abbott to submit at roughly 17 minutes. That same year, Abbott stepped into the Ultimate 1995 tournament. In the opening round, he needed less than 80 seconds to crush Steve Jenham with a neck crank. But in the semifinals, things got much tougher as he was matched up against the wrestling legend Dan Severn. The fight between Abbott and Severn was a clash of titans, with Abbott marching forward like a loaded battle tank, forcing Dan Severn to close distance and clinch. Not wanting to engage in a fistfight with Abbott, Severn forced him to the mat and smothered him with heavy top pressure. Abbott tried to scramble up, but Severn's control quickly drained his gas tank. For 18 long minutes, the wrestler rode out positions, landing short strikes and keeping Abbott pinned against the fence, and that was enough for him to win on the scorecards and knock Abbott out of the tournament. Almost a year later, Abbott came back for the UFC 11 tournament. He tapped out Sam Adkins in the first round, earning himself a spot in the semifinals where things were about to go south. At UFC 11, Abbott fought Scott Ferozzo, a fighter he had faced in a backyard before the UFC.
Didn't you have a fight with Scott Ferozzo in a backyard?
Yes.
That fight's fucking great. We played that fight once on the podcast. We're like, this is so crazy. These guys are so wild. They're just fighting on the lawn.
Knowing what Abbott was capable of, Ferozzo used clinch, dirty boxing, and body shots against the fence to keep Tank at bay. His strategy worked wonders as Tank struggled to fire blows in open space, meaning that the two exchanged in close quarters for the entire fight, but neither was able to find a finish. After 15 exhausting minutes, the judges awarded Ferozzo a unanimous decision, making him one of the few men of that era to outlast Abbott in a slugfest. In December 1996, Tank Abbott entered the Ultimate tournament again, and this time, he finally broke his semifinal curse. He beat Cal Worsham in the quarters, then brutally knocked out Steve Nelmark in the semis to reach the final. But once again, a legend would come back to haunt him in a big way. In the Ultimate 96 tournament final, Abbott faced Don Fry, and the OG matchup was fireworks as Abbott cracked Fry early, dropping him and opening a cut over his nose. Tank then poured on big wild punches, hoping to finish the fight quickly, but Fry absorbed punishment by bobbing, circling, and fighting through the blood. Abbott's aggression, however, cost him big as he overcommitted and slipped, and Fry capitalized by locking in his hooks and taking his back. Within 90 seconds, Fry secured a rear naked choke and forced Abbott to tap out to win.
My older brother Craig, he's about 6'7", he says, "Whatever you do, dumbass, don't trade punches with him." And I go out there lumbering, I step both heels down like a dummy. And you see it plain as day on the tape. Heel, then bap, I'm right on my ass.
With a loss like that, you'd think Abbott might take an easier fight next, but he jumped right back into the shark tank, and the outcome was exactly what everyone expected. At UFC 13, Tank Abbott faced a young and loaded Vitor Belfort, and yet he rushed forward with heavy hooks. Belfort stayed composed and slipped Tank's looping shots before unleashing lightning-fast combinations with both hands. Within 50 seconds, Belfort managed to clip Abbott clean and swarmed with a flurry of straight punches. Tank staggered back across the octagon under the barrage, unable to defend himself as forcing the referee to stop the fight. Despite being on a losing run, Abbott's star power earned him a UFC heavyweight title shot against Maurice Smith, and he fought his heart out for it. From the opening bell at UFC 15, Abbott came out firing on all cylinders and managed to clip Maurice in the clinch, but he failed to finish him on the mat, and that lengthy grappling battle had him gasping for air once referee John McCarthy stood them up due to a lack of activity. Back on his feet, Abbott was too exhausted to continue, and Smith ended his misery with a few crunching low kicks. With 3 straight losses, it looked like Tank's UFC days were slipping away, yet he was a fan favorite because of his style.
So I walk into the cocktail party, and there everybody was like, yes, finally we're seeing somebody that really fights in the fights like we want to see. That's why I became the most popular guy on the show.
Though he was losing regularly, Abbott still managed to surprise everyone by pulling a rabbit out of the hat with back-to-back wins, which earned him a shot against another dangerous contender. At UFC Brazil in October 1998, Abbott faced hometown hero Pedro Rizzo in the hope of making a statement, and he sure started fast with wild hooks. But Rizzo didn't panic. He kept his distance and chopped Tank's legs with brutal low kicks that immediately slowed the big man down. As the minutes passed, Abbott's movement grew sluggish while Rizzo's confidence grew, and late in the first round, Rizzo landed a sharp combination that knocked Tank out. Abbott's next UFC outing against Frank Mir at UFC 41 was even worse. As usual, Tank Abbott stormed forward in search of that haymaker and tested Mir's chin. But Frank Mir had no interest in trading punches and dragged the fight to the mat with a quick takedown. Within seconds, Mir transitioned smoothly into a toe hold and locked it in tight before Tank even had time to react. Abbott tried to power out, but the technique was too sharp, and just 46 seconds into the first round, Tank was forced to tap.
Went out there, gave it what I got caught.
A few months later, Tank was back in the battlefield, but his tools were now growing outdated. At UFC 43 against Kimo Leopoldo, Tank Abbott charged forward like always, throwing wild hooks to test his foe, but he was immediately taken down and mounted. From top position, Leopoldo locked in an arm triangle choke, and within a couple minutes, he dispatched Abbott in a vicious fashion. In November 2003, Tank went up against Wesley Carrera, and for a moment it felt like the old Tank Abbott had returned until things took a bad turn. At UFC 45, Tank Abbott came out swinging like he always does and landed shots that would have stopped lesser men. But Cabbage had one of the best chins in MMA, and he absorbed Tank's shots without flinching. As Tank slowed down, Cabbage turned the fight around, blasting him with big shots that left him bleeding. The cage-side doctor declared Tank unfit to continue, handing him a loss that he felt he didn't deserve. With that defeat, Tank's UFC run officially came to an end, but he didn't let it go just like that. He met Carrera right away in a rematch at a smaller promotion, and this time, Tank knocked him out cold.
Interesting part. He's landed some. Oh, good right hand. Drives him. It drives him. Cabbage is in trouble. Cabbage is out. That's it.
That victory made Pride believe Tank still had some fire left in him, but this time, his downfall was going to be final and decisive. At Pride Final Conflict 2005, Tank went up against Hidehiko Yoshida, who cracked Tank with a high kick early and was immediately taken down. Unfortunately, once they hit the canvas, it was Yoshida's world as he used his judo and slick grappling to control Tank, who had no real answer once he was on his back. Within minutes, Yoshida locked up a single wing choke. Tank tried to resist, but he was badly stuck and had no option but to tap out.
Can he pull it off? He's using his own gi. You see, now this is where the gi comes in handy. And there we go, there's the choke.
Next up, it was Paul Buentello's chance to test himself against a sturdy veteran, but he'd passed that test with flying colors in Strikeforce. From the opening bell, Paul Buentello looked calm and collected against Tank's usual hailstorm. Every time Tank swung wild, Paul answered with straight shots down the middle. Before long, the difference in speed and accuracy showed as Buentello landed a big right hand that rocked Tank badly. Buentello swarmed him with follow-up strikes, forcing the referee to jump in and stop the fight. After failing in Pride and Strikeforce, Abbott signed with Cage Rage, hoping to turn things around against Gary Turner, but his move would backfire badly.
You've got to fight in a few hours. You're standing there with
A couple beers never hurt anybody. You know, I'm not drinking the hard stuff right now. That's for after the fight. But right now, just chilling out, relaxing.
Packed with the power of booze, Tank Abbott came out guns blazing, swinging dynamite punches that almost slept Turner.
Turner sees it start and Tank Abbott frozen over and right.
But Turner pulled himself together and weathered the storm.
Right of his own that sees Turner in trouble. Turner's strong though, he's durable. If he can just hold on here. He will need to weather this storm as Tank Abbott...
As the round went on, Tank slowed down, while Turner started to get into his groove, scoring a takedown and then pounding his way to a scintillating comeback win.
Turner into full man position, taking top control, firing in those shots. The ref calls it. It's over.
Abbott was on a 3-fight skid and clearly past his prime, but his crowd-pleasing style still landed him a blockbuster showdown with Kimbo Slice in Elite XC, and that's when things went absolutely crazy. From the opening bell at Elite XC, Tank Abbott rushed straight at Kimbo Slice, throwing his trademark looping bombs.
Fighter, are you ready? Fighter, are you ready? Cage tested, street certified, the 2 balls made in the...
But Kimbo didn't back down either and rocked Abbott before landing a few illegal shots.
Forget about a feeling of process. Kimbo Slice has Tank Abbott down, and this one is...
When the fight resumed, Kimbo again fired heavy shots that rocked Tank badly, fairly enough this time.
Start already to this main event. Just listen to this crowd.
They actually touched gloves. Oh, that right hand really hurt Tank.
And less than a minute in, Kimbo dropped Tank with a brutal right hand.
Uppercut. Abbott gets another right across the jaw. The third one.
The referee waved it off, giving Kimbo a first-round TKO in what was basically a street fight-style brawl inside the cage.
He hit me blatantly in the back of the head and he knocked me out. I remember waking up on the canvas going, holy fuck, where am I at? And we were in Florida, so I'm like, this is Disneyland or something?
Despite suffering another devastating loss, Abbott wasn't done yet, and he came back with a 30-second knockout of Mike Bork. 4 years later, he would return for a shot at the KOTC Superfight title against Ruben Villarreal, who'd be his final roll of the dice as he'd lose by a second-round TKO. It was another tough defeat for Abbott, and this one really showed that the legend's decline was impossible to overlook.
You made the UFC a very exciting thing in the early days. You were one of the big reasons for its early success.
Yes, I believe so.
I think so too. I think everybody thinks so.
Not long after, he finally hung up the gloves, proving that even the most iconic careers eventually run out of time. If you thought Tank's story was rough, wait until you see what happened to another MMA legend who stuck around a little too long. He is Don Frye.